Hello there. I'm Evelyn from evelynd.com, and today I have a wonderful guest that we are going to just chat it up about the last email that I sent to my subscribers was called "There's Nothing Wrong with You." And Tamsin, who I'm going to introduce in a second, is an energy healer, and she is also a remote viewer. And we've been chatting for a while, connected to a similar community for 3 years or so. And we're going to just talk about that concept, building on there is nothing wrong with you. When it comes to everything in terms of our own sense of self, our healing, our symptoms, our relationships with food or alcohol or money, it's all related. And when we step into more of this knowing that there's really nothing wrong and that our symptoms, for example, are kind of messengers that bring us back into the deeper root causes of why we might struggle with different things. So, Tamsin, can you expand a little bit more about what energy healing and remote viewing is in your work? And then we'll just chat.
Yeah. Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Tam from Transforming Energies. Energy healing, from what I've recently discovered, is quite a broad title for a lot of things. It's the only thing that I've used because I thought it was most commonly understood about energy healing. What it is we're made up of energies. Well, we're made up of many frequencies, but we have light bodies, which are our two energies, so our masculine and our feminine. And the work that I do is on this level. So I go into people's consciousness and we have a look, basically. So this could be that they've had like a trauma cycle that's come up, or they've got some aches and pains in their body, and it's just really anything because we're made up of all these energies. So that's what I do is I have a one-to-one with somebody and we'll have a chat, and then I'll go into their consciousness and then their consciousness will tell me, and then I tell them what it is. And sometimes that could be to do with emotional trauma, and could be to do with like past lives. It could be generational. It could be most likely in the childhood, and these energies are repeating. And these energies that are repeating, the reason why they repeat is because it's a good opportunity for us to learn more about ourselves. So even if they're not so great when it comes up, or they could be good, but or they could be really really bad, but these are the things that they come up, and they're just for us to learn and to understand, because we're all made up of all these beautiful different frequencies that vibrate at different rates. And we've been living in a reality of inverted energy, which is what I would say is like unconscious energy, and it's trying to be conscious. So we've got parts of us that are unconscious that we're trying to get conscious again. So it's us understanding ourselves and us growing and expanding. So that's the kind of work that I do. And that taps into the remote viewing as well, because there are different forms of remote viewing that can be done. I remember when I first started learning about it, I think the CIA does a whole thing on it, and how they do it with like the locations, and then they focus on the locations. I don't do it that way. I go through my heart and then I'll remote view, and it'll be whatever comes up in consciousness, because we're all consciousness. So I'm just tapping into consciousness. And everything that I can do, you can do. Everybody has these abilities. We all just have different abilities, and we're here to do different things. So that these are just the things that I just naturally tap into, and that's why I share and try and help others to expand their awareness and their consciousness. So yeah, that's that. I hope that answers some of that question.
No, that's beautiful. That's exactly it. Like that inverted energy that we take on, the way I connect it most with is, in childhood. And not that I had a terrible childhood or anything, but we start to take on patterns. Some might call it traumas where they develop into patterns and beliefs that might give us these kinds of energies of like, say, lack or not good enough, or that the world is dangerous and I need to be careful, or I need to be perfect, or whatever. So I think when we start to recognize that, when our kind of as our life unfolds and we evolve, and we bump up into, as we will, even as children, we'll get a symptom, right? So let's say now as adults, especially as women, we might come up with symptoms such as hormonal imbalances. And when we dig into it, I know in the world that I came from, my education and everything, like with nutrition and functional medicine, is all about like, oh, let's look at what they consider the root cause, which is let's run a bunch of tests and look at your hormones. So your estrogen, your thyroid, your testosterone, your progesterone, like all your adrenals and your cortisol and all that stuff. So the focus is on what's going on biochemically. But when you look at energy, at it from an energetic perspective, it's the picture is much different, and it's actually much more empowering, because when you see like, oh no, my cortisol is imbalanced, I have adrenal fatigue, or I've got low estrogen, you're kind of like looking outside of yourself for the fix, like, oh, I'm going to need to take these creams, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But it's kind of like, but when you bring it back to the stress response in the body is due to this kind of programming that we've established either through childhood or through generational kind of trauma or through past life experience. That's when you can kind of really dig into like, oh, how can I shift at that level? So when you're working with people, or when you find this in your journeying and so forth, how do you kind of parse through what people seem to know, and like um, they worry about the diagnosis or the symptom, or even like, especially in the space that I'm in, like, oh, gluten or dairy or sugar being like the culprit, the villain. How do you kind of parse through and get back into that real root cause of what is transpiring, that's manifesting in the physical for people?
Well, first of all, I need to, it's an individual experience. So this, I don't want to put it as in this is what will be for everybody, but you would go into the person's consciousness and you just ask the questions. So, for instance, so we're saying about a dairy allergy, you'd go in and just ask them. So it might be that they're expressing it in a form of, upset stomach. So you might want to go into the stomach. Sometimes, in my experience, the gut has a lot to do with like feeling guilty, and shame seems to be quite a big energy that comes about, and it could be linked to that. So it would be whatever comes up. So I could ask those questions. We could go into where it's expressing in the body, because sometimes when we have emotional traumas and they have blockages, they create blockages in our energies. And then these blockages can be expressed in any parts of our body. I find that we all seem to have some organ or something where we target most. So for me, it's my uterus, where I have aches and pains in other places that I've gone through. But if I've got emotional trauma or something like that, I seem to really target my uterus than any other place. There are other people that have the stomach that do focus on the stomach as well. So it's just working through those emotions and finding out what energy it is and where it's coming from. And, it could be so. The interesting thing about dairy is for years, I thought I had lactose intolerance. So I was like, straight away, that's it. I'm cutting out dairy, and I cut out dairy. And I must admit, I did feel better. Like I did actually feel better. And then when I started, like I had it again, like just like a random, like at a cheese night or something like that, because vegan cheese is not cheese. And cheese and red wine go really well. So you need that. So, I'm here to enjoy myself, and I had it and I was fine. There was nothing wrong. And when I actually looked into the energies, I was overdoing it. with the cheese, and I was having too much cheese. And this is where this whole, like, everything, I feel like we're supposed to be in balance. So we're supposed to eat things that resonate with us, and that we, if you're listening to your body will tell you, no, don't need that, don't want that, I want this, I want that. Your mind, on the other hand, will be like, oh no, I want this, or it's a habit, or it's coming from a childhood trauma that's saying you need to have this, or this lacking energy that you spoke of, like, I need to have more chocolate, I need the sugar, I need that buzz of energy to make me feel whole, or I need that, all of this, like, dairy products and all of these things. There's a reason behind a lot of these things, and why we express it in different ways. I just feel like when you look at, there seems to be a diagnosis for everything, like everything. You could give, if I actually filled out a form or something, like I would probably have everything, or I'd have a big chunk of things. When you just think there's always an ist or an us or something at the end of it, like you've got, but it's all about dis-ease. It's dis-ease in your body. And like when you look at chemistry, like what chemistry is all about, like molecules moving, it's energy. So your hormones, as biochemistry, is energy.
Yeah.
So that's when you kind of break it down in that way. And so why are your hormones why are not in balance? What's going on here? Most of the time it's stress, isn't it? And it's
Yeah.
the stress of this distractions and things like this from our own, like, understanding ourselves. But that's a huge other topic.
No,
It's a
but
lot.
it's such a, like, it plagues our society. And we have this big blanket that we call stress, but it's the stress response is something that it comes from our perceptions, right? So world events, or what's going on in our office or in our family or in our homes, in our finances, or in our bodies, even it can, like, so the stress can compound in the physical. But let's just say stress at work. There's, let's say it's a trouble, kind of a nagging boss, or just unfair workplace. And so our perceptions are what create the stress of this boss, who's, either a bad manager, or just, whatever, has its own, his or her own issues. And so we take on that stress, but the stress is like, so we're giving our power to that boss in this example. And then our perception is responding and taking that on. And then that's where all the signaling of stress starts to manifest in whatever way we're most, kind of designed or evolved to respond to it. So like you said, in your case, a lot of things are rooted in the uterus, which probably has something to do with the past, or the past life, or generational stuff. And for others, it might be their skin, their kind of how their skin responds, and the immune system, or it could be digestive, or it could be, in my case, I have Hashimoto. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and it's like the thyroid, and it all has to do with kind of choking back my expression, and like not feeling safe to express. And when I go there, I mean, I don't even want to say my Hashimoto's. In my case, that diagnosis doesn't even affect me. I was diagnosed when I was 35. I'm 55, or I was 33 or something. Now I'm 55. It's like, to me, it's in remission. It's not an issue. It is just something that when I was kind of, not just in the medical system, did a blood test, and the doctor said, you've got, he didn't even say Hashimoto's, I learned that later. He said, you've got thyroid disease, here's a medication, take this for the rest of your life. Come back and get your levels checked, and we'll adjust your medication to make sure it's not too high, too low. And that sent me down this whole rabbit hole of learning functional medicine. But now it's like the next layer is the consciousness, the energy, and the power that I have, and that we all have, in terms of understanding why our perceptions create that stress. So yeah, it's such a huge, stress is like a huge topic, but it does fit in.
Mm.
When we say, like, again, the topic that I wrote about this last week was, there's nothing wrong with you. It kind of, I don't know, when I feel into that, you tell me about you, like for you, when there is nothing wrong with you, like there is nothing you need to research, nothing you need to diagnose, nothing you need to take. When you go in and you say, there's nothing wrong with me, even though these symptoms are showing up, for me, it was like some back pain and some kind of upper respiratory things. It's kind of like, okay, body, what, or consciousness, what is this really about? And then it's kind of like the sense of empowerment and trust is so, like, it just feels so light. Whereas when I start to get into, oh my gosh, it's, you know, it's something terrible, like there's something, I've got COVID, or I've got this or that, or I'm going to have like back pain for the rest of my life. When I start to spiral down what Dr. Google or the medical system will lead me into, then I feel like I'm I'm disempowered. And it doesn't mean don't go to a doctor, right, or anything like that. It just means like having that shift in perspective, even as you move through whatever kind of path you want to, whether it be medical system or alternative medicine or more energy healing level, that you're leading with that sense of trust and trusting in your body's ability to heal, and your trust in understanding yourself at a deeper level. So what comes up for you when I kind of paint that long-winded picture?
Well, firstly, like Evelyn, wow, like you said, you had, I can't even say what that disease is, but whatever it is, the word, which is
Yeah.
not, you've overcome that. That's amazing, and you're expressing yourself, and you're putting yourself out there and putting yourself on YouTube. Like that's huge. So that's a massive, you should be so proud of yourself of how you've overcome that, needing to like that expression, because that must have been really hard for you to like really be on camera and to express, because I've had that where I get, I still get that. That's why I stutter a little bit, because it's quite you've been so used to not expressing and being afraid to express, or being made to feel like you're not good enough to express, that when you do actually finally step into it and express, it feels good to actually let it out, and you feel the more you do it, the more confidence you get with it. But then also I always get this the little habit and the little trauma voice in my head just being like, oh, double guessing, second guessing stuff, and then I'll get like a sore throat or something, because it'll be like trying to restrict me, like don't say anything, so it's a continual battle, but it gets easier, and you can heal it. But yeah, I just thought, wow, that's amazing how you've overcome that. That's brilliant. So hats off to you for doing that. But yeah, so what was the question?
Well, just the concept of stress and
Oh
being
yeah.
being more grounded in trusting your body's ability to heal, even as you move through whatever channel, if it's conventional medicine, if it's alternative medicine, or if it's like alternative on the energy healing, which is such a terrible way to say it, like alternative. It's really like, this is, to me, this is more root cause. But sometimes, it's like, oh, having a little remedy, it helps ease the pain so that you can function or sleep better or whatever. So there's no shame in any of it. Like I think we talked about this in our first video. There's no shame in any of it. It's more just, and by the way, for anybody listening, don't not go to your physician or your whoever you work with. If you feel, again, it goes by trusting. So
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, you know what I
But it's
mean?
just so, like doctors, and we need to go to our doctors when I feel like because we've been living in such an imbalanced reality, that these emotions and this energy does build up, and it does create the blockages, and sometimes it gets to the point where you can go into the emotional works of it, but the damage is kind of done, so you do need that medical intervention. And then but I do believe that you can heal as much as possible, and you can prevent it from getting any worse. But so that's where, we do need to still have the doctors, like when we're going into, the thinking that we can't have doctors. I don't want anyone to believe, like what you said, you should go to the doctors if you're feeling pain. You shouldn't have that, you shouldn't be feeling that discomfort in yourself. But what I think we're trying to say is to get you more empowered into, really feeling how you feel first. Like, do you actually need, is there something else that you could be changing? Is there something that you need to look at your life to understand? Because looking at ourselves is probably the hardest thing, because when you start to realize that we create our own reality and that we're responsible for our reality, it can be quite hard,
Yeah.
because you realize that I'm the one that's creating this. So I said, my uterus, I was the one that's creating that. I'm sending the energies, I'm manifesting that, and I'm creating that out of trauma, out of various things. And I'm the one that's creating it. So I'm still creating it, and I'm the one that's doing that. Like, I know I've done a lot of work, so I don't have that pain or anything like that. So that's how I know this is real, because I used to go from having excruciating pain all the time, and I got diagnosed with endometriosis and polycystic ovaries, and then they were kind of like really unsure about what anything else, because they were like, they don't know what to do. I was on tablets, I had all of these things, and I just thought, wow, this is, it was getting to the point where they were saying, I think we need to take it, have a hysterectomy. And my mum's had one of those. It's quite common in my family. And then when I started learning about healing and energy healing, and I started going into the emotional pain, like, it was not easy. It's not easy going into the emotional pain, but it's so rewarding and it's so worth it. And it's taken me years to
Mm.
going in, because this was one of the areas I kept targeting, but I don't have the same pain anymore. I rarely have pain at all. I don't have endometriosis, because it's a right, when you actually look at what endometriosis is, they don't understand where it comes from. It comes, what they say, it comes from the pituitary gland, because it's a hormone imbalance. So it goes back to what we were talking about before, about like an imbalance in your body. And then we're saying about chemistry and how it talks about molecules and how they're moving. It's the same thing. It's energy. It was energy. It was an imbalance in me, and that was, I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of fear. There was a lot of low frequencies. So we have a range of frequencies and they vibrate at different levels. And if you've got too many of the low ones, it makes you feel dense, makes you feel heavy. Yeah, a lot. So you want to be in balance. Now, I know that the love and light community are all about, oh, you've got to be up here, and always everything is so bright and glorious and lovely, and we could just fly around. No, but that's not reality. That's not what we're here. That you don't learn from being up, and that's like fake, really, isn't it? It's great to, when you're up there, it's like great, but you are supposed to be like understanding yourselves. We're not supposed to always be down here. The problem
Yeah.
is we've been down here too long,
Yeah.
that's caused the imbalances and the blockages in our bodies. So if we're going back to, like I said, with my endometriosis, I went to the doctor. I think after I'd done a lot of healing I went back to the doctor, and they couldn't find any signs. They were like, we don't know what that is. So I was like, I know what it is. And then they said, I haven't got polycystic ovaries. They kept checking, so I went back again, because they kept saying, and then they were like, oh well, I'm sure it'll come back. I haven't had them since. I haven't had the same pain. I haven't had anything. I had a couple of weeks, no, a couple of months ago, I went through a real dark, I had to, because the energy healing, the healing of yourself and things like that, it goes in levels and stages and things like this. And I come to another layer, and then I put pain on myself because I went into some emotional trauma that I wasn't facing myself. But anyway, that's another thing. But other than that, I don't have, it's completely changed my life. I'm not, that's how, for me, I know that this is real. And now I listen to my body. Like, I'm still working on my food habits, because that is another thing where but it comes from me mirroring my mum's behavior, and my mum mirroring her mum's behavior, and how they see food, and how it's a lacking, when you feel a lacking for love, where I was eating my feelings, so I think that's what that was. But that's the things that I'm working on, and I've worked on the emotional side of it. Now I'm dealing with the habits, because that's the other side of it. Is it's you go into the emotional and then you feel the emotions to release them through the body, and then you have to program yourself, because you programmed yourself and put yourself into that habit, especially these real strong habits that you have from when you're a childhood, that you would always go and seek this, even though if you listen to your body, like my body would be telling me, no, I don't need that chocolate bar. Every now and again it's like, yeah, treat yourself, have one. I'm not saying to not have chocolate. I'm just saying you're not supposed to, like, sit there and eat packets and packets like I was doing. That doesn't get you where you need to be. So it's more like listening to your body. Whereas, and if I get that, like my mind will be sometimes being like, oh, say if I've come up with an emotional interaction or something, so something at work's triggered me, or, because when you were saying about the work thing, we connect to each other on a consciousness level all the time. So when you're walking, when you think of somebody, you're setting your intent to connect with them. So so we would just take the work environment, you're walking into a heap load of other emotions. Now, if you get triggered by someone, and when I'm saying triggered, if you're in someone's vicinity and they're not feeling very good, and you can feel that, that's because that's something in you. Because we mirror everywhere we go, we're mirroring our relationship to our environment and our world. So for instance, when I sit in my meeting room, I can feel what people are, what's going on. And when somebody triggers me, I'm like, oh, you can feel that. But when it's something that really hits you, and you're like, oh, and it puts you in a downward like spiral, or makes you feel like that, that's because that's an energy that's in you. So when you're seeing somebody that's upset for something, it's because you've got that same energy that you want to understand. It's really fascinating. We are absolutely fascinating. Like, my mind blows. Like, I love it when I sit there and I try not to be nosy, because it's going into people's consciousness. I like to get their permission, but when I'm at work, a lot of people don't realize that they know I do some of this woohoo stuff, as they call it, but they're not really fully understanding it. And so I'm not going into their consciousness. When I first discovered I could do that, I was a little bit, but it's a very private thing. So I don't sit there and go into people's, but I can feel it. And they're telling me and they're sending me messages and things. And I'm just like, oh. But I wait for that. If there's something that triggers me, then I'm like, oh, there's something for me to understand about myself. But so it's fascinating. So next time you're sitting with a bunch of people, just remember that it's not just physically that you're connecting. Your energies, or if you want to call it like your aura, you're already reading each other and already communicating with each other on a multi-dimensional level.
Yeah,
And
collectively. Oh my gosh, there's so
yeah,
much there. One, I didn't want to lose sight of this, but when you talk about
awesome.
your diagnosis of endometriosis and PCOS, kudos to you too, because if you went the straight conventional route, you'd have a hysterectomy. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were for some reason guided more towards that self-empowerment, self-healing, inner understanding aspect of healing. Now, so there's the conventional, okay, remove the organ. Then, like, if you were to come to me back then, I would have been with my nutrition hat on. Oh, PCOS, that's blood sugar. Like, get the carbs out, no processed food, and we'd like clean up your diet and do all this stuff. And again, just like you realize with food, there's not only the nutritional aspect of the food and what it does to our physiology, but there's the patterns that we've taken on from childhood, from usually following our parents who have learned it from their parents, and so on and so on, where that relationship with food is an energy. And food is like, energetically, as you know, is like money, right? And it is like healing. It's kind of like, it's the way that when there's a lack of our heart consciousness, our female energy, if it's out of balance, where we're more in the mental masculine side and less in our hearts and our kind of higher energies, that's when we can feel all kinds of ways about food, about money, about life, and our, ourselves. And so it is like it, and another great point you made was the whole like kind of love and light, like a new age, where it's like, oh, everybody needs to be high frequency, high vibration. Don't let those lower frequencies in. Well, that's emotionally and energetically bypassing the energies that actually need or are asking to be cleared and understood and seen and eventually cleared. But they need to be seen, they need to be felt, they need to be understood. And then when we decide, because we are a free will species, when we make that decision and take responsibility for keeping them or clearing them, letting them go, processing them through the body, that's when we are actually allowing the full cycle of healing to occur. When we're just bypassing by thinking everything is just unicorns and rainbows, and I'm not going to let any of my lower, denser energies even be seen, we're denying a huge aspect of ourselves. And then healing can't actually occur. It's all fake. And so that all of
And they're
that was,
so important as well, aren't they? All of our emotions, we should be expressing. If we're angry, you're angry,
yeah,
express it.
yeah.
And if you just don't need to express it in a toxic, a dysfunctional way. You can, anger is a valid emotion to have, it's not, doesn't have to be so like strong and you have to punch somebody or something like that, like aggressive, like, but you don't, that's not how you, yeah, that's a like a I'm trying to think of the right word to say, but it's kind of like it's the wrong way, I guess, if
We're
that makes
brought
sense.
up.
It's how it's been,
Yeah,
no,
we're brought
it's
up,
not right.
especially as women,
Yeah,
as females, like, oh, that's not nice. That's not what good girls
yeah.
do. And in different cultures as well, like, oh, just be, be nice and just, let that go. And I think it's Gabor Mate. I love his work. He's he's an MD. I don't know if you've heard of his work, but he has a book. I think I have it here, called When the Body Says No, and talks about the disease connection to emotional suppression.
Oh,
And
cool.
he calls it healthy anger. And I love that because it's not about dysfunctional anger where you're raging and
Yeah,
throwing
that's it. Yeah.
glasses and flipping tables. It's more about like, I'm angry, and I need to express this, and here's why. And what I've learned along the way with our connection in our healing space is the anger is kind of the front door layer of like protection. And then underneath the anger, there's a feeling of either not feeling safe or not feeling heard, or frustration of not being understood or seen. And there's like, again, for me, it was more hiding the insecurities I had about
Mm.
expressing and about being myself. And there's all kinds of other layers that tie into that, like judgment, being judgmental, and perfectionism, and all these other layers as well. So just like as I'm kind of peeling back all of them and understanding like the more of the essence of myself, it allows more of the real truth. And then there's this level of calm and peace and understanding, and then curiosity when a symptom comes up. One other thing I didn't want to lose sight of that you mentioned was about the oh gosh, now it just slipped out. It slipped in, it slipped out. Something about um consciousness, and in that healing stage of it'll come back. All right, I'll just leave that there. I hate when that happens. Yeah, so
That's
good, so
fine.
many gems hidden in there. I'll have to replay it, and I'll probably have a
Mm.
whole post and a separate video to talk about it. And are you familiar with German New Medicine at all? Oh, it's
I know
just,
nothing.
oh, okay,
That's
I
how
won't
I
go
try to
into
say
it.
I know nothing.
I won't go into it. And I know enough to be dangerous, I'm sure, if a GNM person were to listen to this. But what resonates about it for me is that it does go into the emotional root cause. and that there's stages of conflict. There's a conflict kind of shock or a conflict phase, and then a healing phase. And the healing phase is where actually the symptoms might be most pronounced. Like might be where you have a fever and you feel sick, and or you have the pain. But kind of understanding how, they have more of a, I guess it's a little bit mental in terms of the way that it's mapped out. But in essence, it is like, okay, I have this conflict, which could be called stress, like we were talking about earlier. And now I'm processing and allowing those emotions. And now I'm moving into a healing phase. And that's where the tissue adaptations occur, and the body kind of clears out whatever the conflict or the stress what had created to begin with. So then you're on your way to the self-healing. So I just love that at a high level. That's just prevalent in that field of understanding the body.
That's
So
wonderful. And if you think about what stress does to your body,
yeah,
it's, it raises the cortisol levels, it raises your pH, it puts complete imbalance, it makes all your muscles tense, you can get all tense, and it just, but and they say about the fight or flight mode. But then I always like, I'm trying to understand this a bit more in a different way, because the fight or flight mode, it's like it's either one or the other. And I'm thinking, does it have to be like that? That's just saying that we are like animals and we've only got animal instincts.
yeah,
We are a lot more complex, and our emotions, like, so much more complex than we even realize. So I don't see it how we can just be a fight or flight
yeah,
mode. I feel like the way that the inverted reality and how this reality is puts you into those kind of states. But I feel like it's because we're not supposed to be like that we end up getting stressed. Because to me, stress is not only is it potentially coming from like an emotional trauma or something like that's putting you in that stressful situation, but it's because it's not right. Something is not right for you and your body, and you're reacting to it. So what is it that's actually causing that stress? And is it because you need to fight your way out? No.
mm,
Are
yeah,
you trying to fight? Are you trying to run away? What are you trying to run away from what? No, I don't think it's so. I just think that's yeah, and I just think having that mentality, if it's just one or the other, I think doesn't really address how you're really feeling. And instead you're making yourself feel like, oh, it just has to be this one or the other. When no,
yeah,
we're so much more complex than that.
yeah. And there's been advancements in that. It's based in the research of Stephen Porges and the polyvagal theory. So there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. But
Okay.
the kind of teachers in that are more, I think, aware of that consciousness level, know that we can weave in and out of all of it. Maybe some of us have tendencies. You kind of see it in movies with like the belligerent, kind of uncle who's like always like very boisterous and yelling, or this could be the mother as well, kind of that archetype. But I think just when I think of when I bump into conflicts and stress, I can be both. I can be all of it. I can be like feeling aggressive, even if it doesn't even come out. I feel it in like, oh, I'm angry. And then I can be like flight, where it's like I'm running or avoiding that person or that topic or that discussion. And then freeze is kind of where, you're like just a deer in the headlights. And then fawn is when you get into people pleasing and maybe even perfectionism, or freeze can also be procrastination. So, again, the science is trying to do the best it can. It always wants to put things in boxes, but we are so much more
Mm,
complex and nuanced. So I totally get your
yeah,
point. So some of the research has
yeah,
thankfully evolved. Same with German new medicine. And I think there is more to come out of that can be applied and taught, but we don't want to get too in the weeds with the labels, and because that can also be its own level of diagnosis, where it's
yeah,
like, oh, I've got my nervous system's dysregulated, I can't function, it's my nervous system's fault. And we want to be
yeah,
like, no, 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 I take responsibility for my nervous system because it's coming from my perceptions. Yes, they might be rooted in trauma or my beliefs about myself that I still need to heal, but taking it out of that, my nervous system is causing this as almost like a separate entity. It's looking, it's a
Yeah.
thing. It's like,
It's external, yeah. There's
yeah,
something else like that's something that I can get a tablet for that stops me from feeling that way
yeah,
when our
yeah,
perceptions can be changed. It's
yes,
our perception, and the thing is sometimes we do tend to be like this in a
yep,
lot of things, and that's just on some topics we could just be this is just our perception, and we don't want to take other opinions or anybody else because we're just so in that mode, and sometimes that is just the way that we are. But like what we're saying is to empower yourself and to try and step back, because when you're looking at one box you're literally not seeing the whole picture.
yeah,
So the understanding comes from stepping back and seeing it from a different perspective. So that's when I feel emotionally charged when something happens in like social situations. I tend to step back. I try to breathe and just try to see it from a different perspective. Like sometimes somebody might be shouting at me, but they're not shouting at me. They're shouting at themselves, but they're shouting about something. But I'm, to not take it personally because it's something that's with them. Like even the words of the emotions, so like feeling overwhelmed, I don't feel like our words fully describe. I feel they're limited as well. I feel that we're even more complex because like the word anger, there's so much more to it than just that. So
yeah,
I think that it's just even more so than that. Like you said, it's like we're being put into a box. So sometimes the words that I use, even when I'm saying them, I think it's not really a good descriptive word of actually how I'm feeling, but I can't think of actually a word that would be more suitable, because it's just more complex than that. So
yeah,
just to remember that we're multi-layered and that we're so complex, and don't limit yourself to putting yourself in a box or putting yourself into a label, or anything like that. I think we've this moment in time is there seems to be a lot more about labels, and you have to be like this. Like even when I say energy healer and remote viewer, like even though I don't really like to say that, but it's just how we express those things that for me it's just
so
consciousness,
relatable.
but it's
Yeah,
just how to express it.
yeah,
So sometimes we have to say some of these things, like even like my name, Tam, like that's me, that's my identity. But there's so much more to me than just my name. I'm a complex wove of many, many different frequencies that are just bubbling up and doing their thing.
yeah.
It's fascinating. You're fascinating. Just remember how fascinating you are. That's what I think. The more you learn about your energy and how you are and who you are, the more you start to think, oh wow, like this is huge.
Yeah. And you are fascinating, Tamsin. I could talk to you
Like
forever, but we are going to wrap up, and I wanted to point people your way. You are at Transforming Energies. Where can people find you? I know you have a website, you have a newsletter, you're thinking of a Patreon. Tell me more about how people can work with you or just continue to kind of follow your work.
So you can find me on YouTube under Transforming Energies. And then my website is transformingenergies8.com because Transforming Energies was taken. So it's eight. So eight is just like to turn it upside down, it's for infinity. So that's
Yeah,
how I'm trying to
that's
use it
good.
anyway. But yeah, then there's I have a blog that I write, just random things that come up and things that I want to share. The same with my videos on YouTube. They are the whole point was just to provide information and try and share my awareness at the moment and my understanding at this point in time. And then it's just growing along. And yeah, just take a look if you'd like, or if you would like to have a one-to-one session with me, then just book it through my website. And if there's no dates or times, just email me because sometimes the system stops working. Who knows what happens with me in technology? You know, my camera on my laptop stopped working, so I had to get another camera, but that's a whole other thing. Might be something to do with my energies about expressing, challenging myself or something. Like to give myself these little challenges. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you for watching and thank you for being here. And thank you, Evelyn, so much for this lovely chat. As always, we'll have some more of them because there's always so much more that I want to say. And we
I
could just go
know.
on for ages, I think.
I could. We have like different perspectives and knowledge bases, and I love that because it's like bringing the best of all worlds together, and even still it's still even more nuanced than what we could even articulate in a video, a half-hour video. But I love it because it just starts to, hopefully for you people watching, hopefully it gets just some more kind of energy flowing, more expansion in your energies as well, especially as you look at how you can empower yourself to feel, look, and live your best life. So we'll leave it there. Tamsin, again, thank you so much. There will be more to come, and everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.